The autumn wind swept through the quiet town of Ashford, carrying golden leaves along the cobblestone streets and brushing softly against the windows of old brick houses. The clock tower in the center of town stood tall above the marketplace, its bells marking each hour with a deep and familiar sound. For generations, the people of Ashford had trusted that clock to tell them when to open their shops, meet their loved ones, and return home before nightfall. But for Emma Carter, time had stopped long ago. Emma was 29 years old, with chestnut hair, warm green eyes, and a thoughtful expression that often suggested she was listening to memories no one else could hear. She worked as a watchmaker, repairing old clocks and pocket watches in a tiny shop inherited from her grandfather. The sign above the door read, "Carter Clock and Repair inside the shop." Hundreds of clocks ticked together in gentle harmony. Yet one clock never moved. It stood on a shelf above Emma's workbench, a small brass mantel clock with delicate engravings of roses and stars. The hands were frozen at 7:14. That was the exact time her younger brother, Samuel, had left home 10 years earlier on a rainy evening and never returned. Samuel had been only 19 when he argued with their father and stormed out. He promised he would come back after proving he could build a better life on his own. 2 days later, news arrived that the bus he had taken had plunged off a mountain road during a violent storm. Several passengers were never found. No body was recovered. No final goodbye was spoken. When the telephone rang with the terrible news, the brass clock on the mantel mysteriously stopped. Emma never repaired it. Part of her believed that if the clock remained broken, her memory of Samuel would remain untouched. Each evening, after closing the shop, Emma climbed the narrow stairs to her apartment and looked at an old photograph of them together at the town fair. Samuel's smile was wide and fearless. Emma's arm rested around his shoulders. In the photograph, both believed they had endless time. One rainy October morning, a stranger entered the shop. He was an elderly man wearing a dark coat and carrying a weathered leather satchel. "I was told you repair clocks," he said. Emma nodded. The man placed a silver pocket watch on the counter. "It belonged to my son." As Emma opened the watch, she noticed an inscription inside the lid. "Time preserves what love refuses to forget." The words stirred something deep within her. While she worked, the man spoke quietly about his son, who had died many years earlier. "For a long time," he said, "I kept all his belongings exactly as they were. I believed that if nothing changed, my grief would honor him." Emma looked up. "And did it?" The man smiled sadly. "No, it only kept me from living." When the repair was complete, he paid and prepared to leave. At the door he turned and said, "Broken clocks are meant to be repaired, Miss Carter. Memories do not disappear when time begins moving again." After he left, Emma stood alone in the shop, staring at the brass clock on the shelf. For the first time in 10 years, she lifted it into her hands. But before she could open the back panel, she noticed something unusual. A folded piece of paper was tucked beneath the velvet lining. Her heart began to race. With trembling fingers, she removed the yellowed note. It was addressed to her, in Samuel's handwriting. "Dear Emma, if you are reading this, then you finally found the hiding place I used when we were children. I left this note the week before I went away because I knew we were all changing, and I was afraid of losing the person who understood me best. No matter where life takes me, please remember this. You are always my safe place. If I fail, if I disappear, or if time separates us, do not let your life stop because of me. Keep fixing things, keep helping people, keep laughing when you can, and when you are ready, repair this clock, not because you are forgetting me, but because love should move with time, not against it. Your brother, Samuel." Emma sank into her chair as tears blurred the words. All these years, the message had been waiting only inches from her hands. That night, for the first time since Samuel's disappearance, Emma opened the clock's back. The mechanism was simple. A tiny spring had slipped from its place. Within minutes, she corrected the problem. She hesitated before winding the key. Then she turned it gently. The hands shivered. The pendulum began to swing. Tick, tick, tick. The sound filled the workshop like a heartbeat returning after a long silence. Emma wept openly. Over the following weeks, subtle changes entered her life. She reopened the upstairs room she had kept closed since Samuel left. She donated old belongings to local families. She began accepting invitations she had declined for years. And each evening, she listened to the restored clock marking the hours she once feared to face. One winter afternoon, while repairing the town clock tower, Emma met a history teacher named Jonathan Blake. Jonathan was patient, intelligent, and possessed a quiet sense of humor. Their friendship grew over cups of tea and long conversations about books, family, and the strange ways time heals. When Emma told him about Samuel and the hidden letter, Jonathan said, "The people we love never ask us to remain frozen. They hope we keep going." The words echoed Samuel's message. On the 10th anniversary of her brother's departure, Emma visited the mountain memorial where the victims of the bus accident were honored. Snow rested softly among the engraved names. Emma placed Samuel's photograph beneath the stone and read his letter one final time. Then she whispered, "Thank you for teaching me that moving forward is another form of love." A gentle wind lifted the edges of the paper. For the first time, she felt peace. Years passed. Emma and Jonathan married in the spring. Their home above the clock shop filled with music, conversation, and eventually the laughter of 2 children. The brass mantel clock remained in the living room, faithfully ticking beside family photographs. When her children asked why that clock was so special, Emma would open Samuel's letter and read the final lines aloud. "Love should move with time, not against it." The words became a family motto. Many years later, after Emma herself had grown old, the people of Ashford still brought their broken clocks to Carter Clock and Repair. Above the workbench hung a framed quotation in elegant script. "Some hearts stop when they lose someone they love. Healing begins when they allow time to move again." Visitors often asked Emma what the message meant. She would smile gently, listen to the steady ticking of Samuel's clock, and reply, "It means that remembering someone does not require us to remain broken. The most beautiful tribute to love is to keep living."